Okay, so let's take a look at a very recent article concerning the Idaho murders. I'm going to read this out to you and then share some of my own thoughts afterwards. A suspect in the Idaho quadruple murders was stopped by police twice as he and his father made a 2,500-mile cross-country car journey from Washington State to Pennsylvania. Bryan Kohberger, 28, drove from his student accommodation in Pullman, Washington to his home state last month after the murders in Moscow, Idaho, just a 15-minute drive from his property. His attorney, Jason Labar, claims that Kohberger's father flew from Pennsylvania to Washington to meet his son before Christmas and head home together. Labar told CNN that Kohberger and his father travelled across the country in his white Hyundai Elantra, a vehicle which the cops had been hunting for several weeks. He added that the pair were pulled over twice during their trip as they passed through Indiana, once for speeding and the other for following a car ahead too closely. Investigators started tracking Kohberger's movements across the US, with witnesses claiming that they saw both him and his father getting repairs done to the car on December the 16th. Police then impounded the vehicle from outside of his parents' home when they swooped on the property in Chestnut Hill Township, Monroe County. Labar said that the Kohbergers arrived home around December the 17th, and an FBI team kept him under surveillance for several days before his arrest. It is unclear if Kohberger's father, who went bankrupt in 2010, or the rest of his family were aware of the murders. The public defender added that Kohberger is, quote, shocked after the charges, claiming that he would be waiving his extradition at a hearing on January the 3rd. In a statement, he said, quote, Mr. Kohberger is eager to be exonerated of these charges and looks forward to resolving these matters as promptly as possible. It is understood that the alleged killer will be returned to Idaho within 72 hours of the extradition hearing. Graduate PhD student Kohberger had previously studied under a professor in Pennsylvania known for her expertise on serial killers and was studying criminology at Washington State University at the time of the slayings. Investigators in Moscow, Idaho have yet to outline a motive in the murders of the four students, but those who knew Kohberger say he had a deep interest in the psychology of criminals. Friends from high school claim that he struggled with heroin addiction in his younger years but appeared to have moved past it. Kohberger earned a psychology degree at community college in 2018 before studying psychology and criminal justice at DeSales University. He was taught in part by renowned forensic psychologist Katherine Ramsland, who has written The Mind of a Murderer and How to Catch a Killer. Ramsland has declined to comment, but spent decades researching serial killers and mass murderers, and is best known for developing a close relationship with serial murderer Dennis Rader, known as BTK. Federal and state investigators are now combing through his background, financial records, and electronic communications as they work to identify a motive and build the case. The investigators are also interviewing people who knew Kohberger, including those at Washington State University. Kohberger may possibly face the death penalty in the state, in which his family can't afford to hire an attorney to fight. Investigators are still trying to locate the murder weapon more than 6 weeks after the murders, which they believe was a large knife. Kohberger's family addressed the charges on Sunday and asked for people to refrain from judgment. In a statement, they said, quote, "We will continue to let the legal process unfold, and as a family we will love and support our son and brother. First and foremost, we care deeply for the 4 families who have lost their precious children. There are no words that can adequately express the sadness we feel, and we pray for them each day. We have fully cooperated with law enforcement agencies in an attempt to seek the truth and promote his presumption of innocence rather than judge unknown facts and make erroneous assumptions." End quote. Kohberger's family asked for privacy during this time as they cooperate with law enforcement to get to the bottom of the case. Moscow Chief of Police James Fry refused to rule out that the killer had an accomplice. Details of the killings and the motive for them are yet to be released, with law enforcement saying a sealed arrest affidavit will be released once Kohberger is extradited back to Idaho. Okay, so we have that rather intriguing article there which talks about Bryan Kohberger's public defender, Mr. Labar, talking about this vehicle being stopped twice during a journey. Now, this is actually contradicted by another article from Fox. I'm just going to read this to you. It's quite a short article, but it does paint a bit of a different picture here. Moscow, Idaho, Bryan Kohberger, the suspected killer of 4 University of Idaho students who police arrested in Pennsylvania on Friday, made a 2,500-mile road trip home with his father and was pulled over twice along the way, according to his public defender. Jason Labar, Kohberger's Pennsylvania defense attorney in the extradition case, did not immediately respond to Fox News Digital's request for comment on Monday. However, he illustrated parts of the suspect's cross-country race home in a televised interview, stating that Kohberger's father flew into Spokane, Washington, and then drove down to Pullman in a pre-planned trip ahead of the drive home ahead of the Christmas holiday break. I don't know whether they were speeding or not, or if they were even issued a ticket, Labar reportedly told NBC. I just know that they were pulled over in Indiana almost back to back, I believe once for speeding and once for following too closely to a car in front of them. The father's visit to Washington was pre-planned according to the interview. An Indiana State Police spokesman told Fox News Digital that he could not find evidence of any such encounters. We have examined records and do not find any record of any traffic stops or any interactions involving Bryan Kohberger, his father, or any Kohberger, Sergeant Glenn Fifield said on Monday. Labar did not immediately clarify which jurisdictions the stops happened in. Kohberger, 28, was a PhD candidate at Washington State University in Pullman, roughly 10 miles from the University of Idaho in Moscow. The two communities lie just across state lines from one another. Classes ended at WSU on December the 15th and the following day at UI. It was not immediately clear when Kohberger left Pullman, but he returned to Albrightsville, Pennsylvania by December the 17th, according to Labar. Okay, so on the face of it here, we could be looking at 2 potential traffic stops during this journey home for Bryan Kohberger and his father. Now, one was for speeding, one was for following a car too closely from behind. And a lot of people have talked about this in this case regarding the DNA aspect. There was DNA left at the crime scene. How are they going to get the DNA of Bryan Kohberger? This was someone who wasn't in the system. So how could they possibly, create a situation where they could obtain his DNA? And this does actually make a lot of sense here. Now, if they pulled him over and they gave him maybe a speeding ticket, or they asked him to write something down and then they kept hold of the pen afterwards to try and get his DNA. Is that a possibility here? Now, if this traffic stop, or traffic stops I should say, did in fact happen, could this be because they were in fact tailing this individual? Now, we know that he was arrested. We know that he was arrested at his parents' property. They were tailing him in some way, shape or form. And this would, as I said earlier, would make a lot of sense to stop him for maybe like a speeding violation or something where they can get him on camera, maybe use the body cam footage to see if he's got any visible injuries to his hands or scratches to his face, etc. Maybe get a closer look at him, make sure they're following the right individual. So I don't think we're looking at, a coincidence here that he's had these 2 traffic stops and then the FBI have also been tailing him, following him, having him under surveillance shortly before his arrest. Let me know in the comment section below if you believe this is how they got hold of Bryan Kohberger's DNA. Was he asked to sign something, touch something? Did they retrieve something from the car potentially? Let me know what you think down below. And as always, if you enjoyed this video, please do give it a thumbs up, subscribe to the channel, and I look forward to seeing you all again for the next one. Cheers.